Okay, so most animals have a genetic way of determining whether or not the embryo is going to be male or female. So this is what is called sex determination. So we can talk about genetic sex, which is not the same thing as like what you look like with the external genitalia or what you feel like, right? So this is just genetic sex. And so we have an X and a Y chromosome. And so these are the sex chromosomes. They are unique because they are not homologous, which means they don't have the same size and the same shape, and they don't have the same genes. And so the X chromosome kind of looks like this, and the Y chromosome looks like that. Okay. So our X's and Y's come together, right? And they form male and female genetic sex. So when we look at this, the females, which are usually written with this is females, are XX, and the males are XY. So this is said to be the homogametic sex. And this is said to be the heterogametic sex. Meaning that females, when they produce eggs, all of the eggs will have the X chromosome. Males producing sperm, some of the sperm will have the X chromosome and some will have the Y. And so we can use what is called a Punnett square to actually fertilize our gametes. So these are the eggs. I draw them on one part of my box. And these are the sperm. So this one has X and this one has Y. So 50% of the sperm on average are supposedly or should have the X chromosome and 50% should have the Y. Now there are some reasons why this is not actually true, but let's just go with what we see here. So using this, I can put X and X. I'm just using X, XX, XY, XY. So on average, you would predict that 50% of the offspring would be female and 50% of the offspring would be male. Now, interestingly, this sperm with the Y chromosome, it has less genetic material and it is actually supposedly faster. So one of the interesting things is that more XY embryos are produced than you would think, but more die. And there's a video about sex ratios, like how many females to how many males. So for every 100 female embryos produced, there's like 106 males. So it's not quite 50-50. But male embryos are more likely to die, and males in general are more likely to not survive to adulthood. And then it also could depend upon the female's conditions in which she is living. If the conditions are really rough, she tends to have female offspring. And if the conditions are really good, like there's enough food and it's not stressful, then she tends to have male offspring. And so there seems to be some other things that determine this. But in general, this is why they say it is the male that determines the sex of the offspring, because it is the X or the Y that end up fertilizing the egg. Now, I want to mention that this is not the only form of sex determination. So for example, in birds, we have ZW, where the female is actually the heterogametic sex and the male is the homogametic sex. So in birds, it is the female that determines things. Why wouldn't we say, oh, if she's ZW, why isn't she a male? It's because of the size of the gametes. The birds have the eggs, the males have the sperm. And most birds don't have external genitalia that you can distinguish. So it is not just that it's not looking at whether or not they have a penis for example, because most birds do not. Okay, so the other example would be in turtles, where it's not genetic at all. So the environment determines. Right, so this tends to be the temperature at incubation. So if the incubation temperature is hot or if it's cool, depending like where the egg is in the nest that they bury underground, they could either be male or female. So it has they're genetically identical. It's only the temperature at which the eggs are incubated. So what that means to me is that temperature is influencing gene expression in those eggs. And that is what actually determines whether they are male or female. Now, some fish have the ability to change sex. So that's sometimes referred to as sequential hermaphroditism. It's a big word, but what that means is that they can be all females. And if there's no males to fertilize the females, some of those females will turn into males or vice versa. A male might turn into a female. So it depends upon what everybody else is doing in the environment as to whether or not they will produce egg or sperm.